Turkey and Armenia have been disputing for more than 100 years now the events of 1915 in eastern Anatolia. Armenia claims around 1.5 million Armenians died in 1915 during mass deportations from territories now within Turkey's eastern borders. Turkey acknowledges the suffering of the Armenians, but believes that the death of the Muslims must be considered in this context too. According to Turkey, during the periods between 1912 and 1922, around 3 million people died, including Turks, Kurds and Jews, and estimates that around 300,000 to 600,000 were Armenians.
But I also wish to say that we have to consider that Armenians also killed Turks and Kurds.
Many historians acknowledge that Armenians died, but argue it is not genocide as it is being portrayed by the Western media. Bernard Lewis, a prominent historian, said he feels the suffering of the Armenian people, but objects to the comparisons made to the Holocaust.
The Armenians want to benefit from both worlds. On the one hand, they speak with pride of their struggle against Ottoman despotism, while on the other hand, they compare their tragedy to the Jewish Holocaust. I do not accept this.
Tüm dünya şunu bilmeli. Biz arşivleri sonuna kadar açtık. Ey Ermeniler, varsa arşiviniz siz de açın. Tüm dünya, üçüncü ülkeler, varsa arşivlerinizi açın.
To understand what really happened in 1915, we need to go back. You see, the Ottoman Empire ruled for more than 600 years. Turks, Kurds, Armenians, Greeks and Jews lived side by side in peace for centuries. The empire stretched across southeastern Europe, the Middle East, North Africa and many parts of the Arabian Peninsula.
Together, the Armenians and the Turks lived for 800 years. 800 years in which things weren't perfect, but in which they lived side by side and managed to survive.
Between 1893 and 1915, Ottoman Armenians rebelled against the Ottoman government. They joined two Armenian separatist groups, the notorious Dashnaks and Hunchaks. These two groups armed and paved the way for a Russian invasion of eastern Anatolia. Armenians started revolts in parts of eastern Anatolia in an effort to obtain autonomy in the Caucasus and eastern Anatolia. In 1914, the Russians went to war with the Turks, and the Armenians decided it was the right time to get what they wanted.
We had embraced Russia wholeheartedly, without any compunction. Without any positive basis of fact, we believed that the Tsarist government would grant us more or less broad self-government.
They thought that if they provided volunteers for the Russian army, and they supplied 4 brigades, that they would be able to rely on the Russians to set up a separate Armenia. And of course, to do that kind of thing in 1915, when the Turks were being attacked by the British and French in Gallipoli, more or less the same time, was a terrible provocation.
As the Ottoman Empire was at war on many fronts, the Russians were heavily supporting the Armenians. Now, to be clear, not every Armenian living under Ottoman rule was part of this uprising.
Sensible Armenians said, this is a terrible mistake. And what did the Dashnaks do? They shoot them.
The Armenian gangs were getting more violent, and by this time, they were cutting off vital supply routes and transport lines of the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire decided to relocate around 700,000 Armenians to parts of what is now Iraq and Syria. A letter by the Minister of Internal Affairs to several district governors highlights the importance the Ottoman Empire gave to the Armenians.
It is essential that the security of the Armenians being moved to be provided in full during their journey. The local population must not under any circumstances be allowed to take action against the Armenians during their journey. However, every precaution must be taken against possible attacks from the clans and villagers on the route, and any who attempts such an attack must be stopped, using force if necessary.
Archive documents reveal that there were some Ottoman officials and citizens who committed offences against Armenian convoys contrary to their orders. More than 1,000 Ottomans, including government officials, were identified and tried on charges of killing Armenians. They were held responsible for the Armenian losses and punished in 1916, some with capital punishment.
The Ottomans tried to follow the rule of law. For crimes against Armenians, they tried and many times hung the people who had done these things, including an Ottoman governor. They weren't perfect. A lot of people got away. No doubt about it. But how many Armenians or Russians who killed Turks, how many of them were ever tried and convicted? None. Not a single one.
2.5 million Anatolian Muslims died in the same period, far exceeding the number of Armenians who died during the relocation due to tribal crimes, illnesses, plague, and famine. The Armenians were being relocated in groups of 200 and had been guaranteed that they could return once the danger was over. During the relocation, Armenian gangs also killed thousands of Armenians, accusing them of betrayal. Those living in Izmir, Istanbul, and Edirne were not relocated as they did not pose a threat or were not in danger. It is believed that after the war was over, 280,000 Armenians returned to the Anatolian portion of the occupied Ottoman Empire, and a total of 700,000 Armenians emigrated to other countries.
So if you want to accuse the Ottomans of genocide or massacre or whatever you want to do, you have to take a look at these things. Huh?